Family dinners are supposed to be about connection. About catching up. About love. But in my family, they were about judgment. Every month, like clockwork, my parents would invite me and my brother to their house for Sunday dinner. And every month, like clockwork, they'd spend the entire evening comparing us. Comparing our jobs. Our homes. Our lives. And every single time, I came up short. My brother Tyler lived in a 5-bedroom house in the suburbs with a 3-car garage and a pool. I lived in a small apartment downtown. Tyler drove a BMW. I drove a 10-year-old Honda. Tyler wore designer suits to his corporate job. I wore jeans and t-shirts to my office. And my parents never let me forget the difference. I'm Claire. 32 years old. The disappointment. The one who didn't live up to expectations. Growing up, I was always the creative one. The dreamer. While Tyler followed the traditional path, business degree, corporate job, climbing the ladder, I went into graphic design. I loved it. Still do. But to my parents, it wasn't a real career. It was a hobby that somehow paid bills. When are you going to get a serious job? My father would ask at every dinner. Something with benefits? A retirement plan? I have benefits, I'd say. I have a retirement plan. He'd wave his hand dismissively. You know what I mean. A real job. At a real company. Not this freelance nonsense. My mother was worse. She'd make comments about my apartment. Still renting, Claire? Don't you want to own something? Build equity? I like renting, I'd say. It's flexible. I don't have to worry about maintenance. She'd purse her lips. That's what people say when they can't afford to buy. Then she'd turn to Tyler. Tell your sister about your new home theater system. Isn't it wonderful? And Tyler would launch into a detailed description while I pushed food around my plate and wondered why I kept coming to these dinners. But the worst was when they'd talk about money directly. My father owned a successful accounting firm. My mother had been a lawyer before retiring. They were comfortable. Very comfortable. And they never let me forget that I wasn't. At one dinner, about 6 months ago, my mother asked how much I was making. It's rude to ask that, I said quietly. We're family, she replied. We just want to make sure you're okay. I told her a number. A good number, actually. My freelance business had grown significantly over the past few years. But she frowned. That's all? Honey, Tyler makes 3 times that. Different industries, I said. Different career paths. She shook her head. Different choices, you mean? That dinner, 6 months ago, was when something inside me started to shift. I'd spent my entire adult life trying to prove to them that I was enough. That my choices were valid. That success didn't look the same for everyone. But they'd never see it. They'd decided who I was when I was 18 and chose art school over business school. And nothing I did would change their minds. So I stopped trying to convince them. I just let them talk. Let them judge. Let them mock. And I started planning. You see, what my parents didn't know was that my freelance business wasn't just successful. It was very successful. I'd been building it for 10 years, slowly, carefully, quietly. I worked with major brands, tech startups, international clients. My rates had tripled in the past 3 years alone. But I lived modestly. Kept driving my old car. Kept living in my small apartment. Not because I couldn't afford more. But because I didn't need more. I was investing. Heavily. Stocks. Real estate. Index funds. I had a financial advisor who'd helped me build a portfolio that most people twice my age would envy. But I never told my parents. Because it wasn't about the money. It was about the principle. Last month's dinner was different. It was my father's birthday. We all gathered at their house, the big colonial with the perfectly manicured lawn that my mother was so proud of. Tyler showed up in his BMW with his wife Jennifer, both of them dressed like they were going to a country club. I showed up in my Honda wearing a simple dress from Target. My mother's eyes swept over me, and I saw the familiar disappointment. "You couldn't dress up for your father's birthday?" she asked. "I am dressed up," I said. "This is a nice dress." She sighed. "If you say so." Dinner was the usual performance. My father talked about Tyler's promotion. My mother talked about Tyler's vacation to Europe. Tyler talked about the new boat he was considering buying. And then, as dessert was being served, my father turned to me. "So Claire," he said, his tone patronizing. "Still living cheap? Still in that little apartment?" I smiled. "Still there," I said. He shook his head. "You know, at your age, I owned my first house. Had money in the bank. A solid career. You've got to start thinking about your future." "I am thinking about my future," I said calmly. He laughed. "By throwing money away on rent? By driving a car that's older than some of your coworkers? That's not a future, Claire. That's just surviving." My mother chimed in. "We worry about you, honey. What happens when you're our age? You can't freelance forever. You need security. Stability." "I have both," I said. She gave me that pitying look. The one that said she didn't believe me but was trying to be kind. "Of course you do, dear." Tyler jumped in, trying to be helpful. "You know, Claire, my company is hiring. I could get you an interview. Entry level, but it's something. Benefits. Pension. Real job security." I looked at him. "I don't need a job, Tyler. I have a career." He exchanged a glance with our parents. One of those looks that said everything. Poor Claire. Still delusional. Still pretending. That's when I reached into my bag and pulled out my laptop. I'd brought it knowing this moment might come. Hoping it wouldn't, but prepared if it did. "What are you doing?" my mother asked. "Just want to show you something," I said. I opened my laptop and pulled up my bank app. Then I turned the screen toward them. "This is my checking account," I said. The balance showed $87,000. My emergency fund. My mother's eyes widened slightly. "That's nice, dear," she said, her voice uncertain. "But that's not." I cut her off. "This is my savings account." I switched screens. $312,000. Silence. "And this is my investment portfolio." I pulled up my brokerage account. The total value was $1.9 million. You could have heard a pin drop. My father's face went white. My mother's mouth opened but no sound came out. Tyler just stared, his fork frozen halfway to his mouth. I kept my voice calm, even. "I've been investing for 10 years. Aggressively. 15% of every payment goes straight into index funds. 20% into real estate investment trusts. I own shares in 12 different companies. My portfolio has averaged an 11% return annually. I'll be able to retire by 45 if I want to. Earlier if I keep up my current pace." My father found his voice first. "That can't be real," he said. "Show me the details." So I did. I walked him through every account. Every investment. Every calculated decision I'd made while they'd been busy judging my car and my apartment. I showed him my client list. Brands he recognized. Companies he'd heard of. Retainer contracts worth 6 figures annually. I showed him my business account with its steady, substantial income. I showed him everything. My mother's face had gone from white to red. "Why didn't you tell us?" she asked, her voice shaking. "Because you never asked," I said simply. "You asked how much I made, and I told you. But you didn't ask if I was investing it. If I was building wealth. If I had a plan. You just assumed I was struggling because I didn't look successful by your standards. Tyler was still staring at the laptop screen. But you drive that old car, he said weakly. Because it runs fine, I said. Because spending $40,000 on a new car when I have a reliable one doesn't make financial sense. That's not being cheap. That's being smart. And your apartment, my mother said. It's so small. It's perfect for me, I replied. And my rent is $1,600 a month in a great location. Do you know what Tyler's mortgage is? She blinked. I did my research. Tyler's mortgage on that 5-bedroom house is $4,800 a month. Plus property taxes. Plus maintenance. Plus insurance. He's paying over $70,000 a year to live there. I'm paying under $20,000. That's $50,000 a year I'm investing instead of spending on space I don't need. My father sat back in his chair, looking stunned. All this time, he said slowly. All this time we thought. You thought I was failing, I finished. Because I wasn't spending money the way you spend money. Because I made different choices. But my choices led here. I gestured at the laptop. To financial independence before I'm 35. To freedom. To not needing anyone's approval or help. I closed the laptop and put it back in my bag. The room was silent. My mother was crying quietly, though I wasn't sure if it was shame or shock or something else. My father looked like he'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. Tyler was staring at his plate. I stood up. Thank you for dinner, I said. Happy birthday, Dad. And I walked out. Got in my old Honda. Drove back to my small apartment. And I felt lighter than I had in years. Not because I'd proven something to them. But because I'd finally stopped needing to. The next morning, my mother called. I almost didn't answer. But curiosity won. Claire, she said, her voice small. We need to talk. We do, I agreed. She took a breath. We were wrong. About everything. We judged you based on appearances. On our own narrow view of success. And we hurt you. For years, we hurt you. I didn't say anything. I let her sit with that truth. Your father and I talked all night, she continued. We're so proud of you. Proud of what you've built. Proud of your discipline and your intelligence. We couldn't see it. Because we weren't looking. I'm glad you see it now, I said quietly. But Mom, I didn't do this for you. I didn't build this life to prove anything to you or Dad or Tyler. I did it for me. Because I knew what mattered. And it wasn't your approval. She was quiet for a moment. I know, she said finally. But I hope, maybe, we can start over. Start seeing you for who you really are. We're working on it, I said. That's all I could promise. That we'd try. That maybe, over time, they'd learn to respect my choices even if they didn't understand them. Tyler called later that day. Claire, he said. I'm an asshole. I laughed despite myself. Yeah, you kind of are. I know. I thought I was doing better than you. Thought I was the successful one. And it made me feel good to be the golden child, you know? I know, I said. But success isn't about who has the bigger house, Tyler. It's about who's building the life they actually want. He sighed. I'm drowning in debt, Claire. The house, the car, Jennifer's spending. We look successful but we're barely making the payments. I want what you have. The freedom. The security. So build it, I said. It's not too late. Start investing. Cut the spending. Stop trying to look rich and start actually becoming financially stable. It's harder when you've got the big expenses, but it's possible. Will you help me? He asked. I smiled. Yeah, I'll help you. Because that's what family should do. Actually help. Not judge. Not mock. Help. Over the next few months, my relationship with my parents slowly changed. They stopped making comments about my car and my apartment. Started asking real questions about my investments, my business, my strategies. My father even referred a few clients to me, finally acknowledging that what I did was valuable. My mother started reading books about financial independence, trying to understand the path I'd chosen. It wasn't perfect. Old habits die hard. But it was better. Real. Honest. And Tyler? He started making changes. Small ones at first. Packing lunch instead of eating out. Skipping the boat purchase. Setting up automatic transfers to investment accounts. He'll never catch up to where I am, the decade head start is too significant, but he's building something. Something sustainable. Something real. And that's what matters. 6 months after that dinner, I bought a house. Not because my parents pressured me. Not to prove anything. But because I found a property I loved, a small craftsman-style home with a garden, and I could pay cash for it. No mortgage. No debt. Just mine. I invited my family over for dinner. Cooked in my new kitchen. Showed them around. And my father hugged me tight and whispered, "I'm sorry it took me so long to see how extraordinary you are." I'm 33 now. Financially independent. Living life on my terms. Building my business. Helping others understand that wealth isn't about looking rich. It's about being free. I still drive that Honda. It's got 200,000 miles now, but it runs great. I still shop at Target. Still live modestly. Not because I have to. But because I choose to. Because every dollar I don't spend on impressing others is a dollar I invest in my future. In my freedom. In the life I want to build. If you've ever been mocked for living below your means, this story is for you. If you've ever been judged for driving an old car or living in a small place while quietly building wealth, you already know what I learned. That the people laughing at your choices today will be asking for your advice tomorrow. That looking poor while building rich beats looking rich while going broke. Comment your city below and tell me, are you building real wealth or just the appearance of it? Subscribe for more stories about people who chose freedom over status. Because sometimes, the best revenge isn't showing them your bank account. It's knowing you don't need their approval to be successful.